I'm Nate Miller from DigiFX, and we're going to try this again real quickly. I had myself on mute the first 10 minutes, but that's okay because I wasn't saying anything worthwhile. Just joking. But the purpose of today is to create a very high level overview, ideology, and thought process between the next 9 months of my strategy within my company. So here I've laid out this index, and if you want access to this index, you can get it from just going digifx.link/index, and it will be there. And this is fully available. And then also our repository, which has a lot of information on this as well, is something you can access as well. So the key initiative today is to showcase and talk about what I'm trying to do in the next couple of months, and really roll out the foundation of what that means in terms of like actions moving forward, and bringing parties on to balance out everything that comes next. I'm a little bit behind in my schedule, like I was mentioning. My goal today is to launch a newsletter, send out some emails regarding a lot of this stuff, and I have a new article talking about the magic cinema, which segues into this, along with this index, which I'm talking about right now. So I will, after this, I'm going to be rolling out some of this stuff. You're going to start seeing more related content to what I'm talking about. So our next move, well, our personal mission is simple. It's to create purposeful impact into leveraging a lot of these emerging technologies and innovation on the table. So that means essentially there's a lot of opportunity out there. We just have to figure out ways to build it into society to where we can create value around the stuff that's being generated and developed into this big picture kind of framework to be utilized. And so I want to add value to the companies already doing that through creating equal opportunity, finding what people want to accomplish in their life, and really helping further their goals, and that's one of my biggest missions. So the corporate vision is around the strategy of the big picture of the world and how we can add value to them. And so we've taken traditional market practices and tried to create a new age, immersive entertainment value in taking all these things that we love. And we do that by just taking a lot of trends that we see available and bring them all together into an experience that's first of its kind. It's something that will be a lot of fun. And then figuring out the technicalities to bring it into down the road. So the company goals are very much aligned with that, but it's more internal growth. So we're trying to create a sustainable emerging industry across the board. So the last year I have been thinking about a lot of partnerships and enterprise level SaaS, like I've been talking about. And those external companies are going to bring value from their expertise, but internally we have to know how to facilitate and leverage what we're being given. And it's also creating a sustainable growth in terms of our specific company, or our C Corp or LLC, or whatever we create next. So the internal growth and the sustainability that we want to create is really around taking a lot of these interests and bringing them together and creating a workforce that we can then offer more value to these bigger players in the market. This is part of our corporate vision. So that's kind of our next move in terms of where our head's at from the company mission, and our goals is to create equal opportunity through trends that are emerging, add value to the world around us, and also create a sustainable infrastructure in the interior so that we can grow and scale and do all these fun things you want to do in a startup without stretching ourselves too thin, like we see happening with a lot of the big tech companies that what they're facing is talking about a lot of the numbers. And so one of the biggest things that you'll hear is you got to know your expenses and everything that you're going through. So as we roll out this idea and we bring people on, the seed funding and all of these plays a big part in it. For the first series of wave of the next step, I'm really trying to generate enough money for our founding executive team, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, along with some of the costs of the scalability and development deployment strategies of what the data consumption entails. So one of the biggest challenges you face is when you scale up and you have people using your application. If you have 100 people using it consistently, you can measure their use time with how much it costs per interaction. You can definitely do the math and figure that out on a larger scale. For me, it's just understanding all the fundamentals of what that entails. So when I release something bigger, I know I'm not gonna drain any extra resources without growing, and bringing something back in return. So our series funding is really, the first series is going to be around a small team being able to being sure we can take care of them, and there's some sustainability in terms of their help, and then along with the consumption cost and a little bit of cushion and stuff in the banks to where if we have some unknowns that will happen. So the revenue projection from all of this is like any other media experience. There's a lot of ways we're going to create value in our platform and our applications, and a lot of the stuff we're creating. One of the most obvious ones is selling ad space, whether it's in 3D space or in the loaders and the sliders and the transitional async scenes. But there's also some transactional costs in a lot of the stuff that we're creating in terms of the product deliveries within experiences, and different ways to accumulate resources through in-app purchases and stuff like that. So those all those theories that in terms of how we're going to make money back for what we're doing are in place, and I'm rolling out and practicing those in real time to see how they work. And then predictable expenses is like kind of coming back to why the room of growth. We know there's a recurring model in terms of stuff we pay for every month, and we know there's a recurring user identity in terms of the data consumption they have. We don't necessarily know a lot of the unknowns of the new things that we have to bring on in a new field. So being able to establish as much upfront that you're going to spend to do this, and making sure you can make an equal amount, if not 10 times, 20, 50, 100 times more in return plus, is a huge fundamental practice in terms of laying out any kind of startup initiative. So I have a lot of the business numbers in place. I haven't had a chance to go back and really think about fine-tuning them down to the last dollar or penny amount to where it makes sense. And I will, after all of this rolls out in the next couple of weeks, go back and try to align a lot of those asks with what I'm talking about in this moment. So that kind of rolls into the value prop. Why does this make sense? And the big thing is that there's a lot of resources available. We see this happening from hardware being generated to the infrastructure to the media to the social media battles between all these different things. And there's so much stuff available, and I am trying to create some kind of tool or resource that can funnel us into those available resources and establish a hierarchy or a higher protocol of the workflow methodologies and processes in play. And so we can streamline the system, we can make it more efficient, we can guide people upon these processes and take all the cluster of all the information and really, really make it easy and accessible through 3D technologies, AI, and a lot of other fun stuff like that. So our monetization plan really plays a part into all of these experiences we're creating. And this is everything from a lot of the very high level tech, AI, how it engages and interacts with you. Now, I know that there's been a shift in a lot of places in the past recent months. And I think the beauty about what I'm doing is that I'm such a small little entity with big picture ideas. I can slowly progress in the right direction and not lose a lot of stuff I've created, because I don't necessarily have to have a huge overhead in all of this, and I can continue doing this. However, also forward progression calls for equal collaborative help. So I understand that my view and vision has to align with the bigger picture. And so I'm really trying to look at what I see the moves people are making, and observing a lot more and reacting to that the way I have been doing. And so if you guys see that, you'll know that's my game. My game is to react to what I see happening and my own 2 cents that I want to bring to the table. So the monetization really is wrapped around what I talked about, but there are a lot of new technologies we're going to incorporate in the experiences, in these broadcast environments, in these shopping experiences, like these immersive assistants. And I talk about this because basically Amazon talked about recently cutting back on their Alexa stuff, which is an interesting concept, and a lot of the other big companies like are cutting back on in areas where they don't necessarily need a human there, or where a machine can do something else. And so with that in mind, I think there's other opportunities for where the humans play a part in this, facilitating a lot of the what's coming next here and transitioning into this new space. And so how we monetize these things is really around that new space with what we're creating and how people can be a part of that and contribute to that in their own means and manner, so their own environments and stuff. And more importantly, the market opportunities come from trend stacking. The oldest thing in the book to excite people is see what the very enticing area for people to engage in, and the biggest challenge is how do you kind of flow all these flow all these interests into one space that everybody can play around with. Now, Elon's acquisition of Twitter is interesting because he very much looks at things from a global scale in terms of development. I look at things right now, being somebody earlier on in my life and my career, as I look at the development in the US and I kind of see that as what I'm used to playing with. But he talked about like the What's app, or whatever it's called, the China's messaging app and all the stuff it can do. And so his goals with Twitter is really to align that, right? I think he said he's going to just kind of clone that model and make that work to where it can be more than just a social app. And every big tech infrastructure and framework wants to do this. This is why we have so many options, and it creates these silos of people that are dedicated to one person or one company and not another. And luckily for me, I don't have to silo myself. I can just go to every single platform and give my time and share my stuff and see what they want to do and try to align my skill set or my interest towards giving them that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing here is really geared towards all the social people, all the tech people, and all the broadcast people that are interested in this stuff. It's really just my way of contributing fun new ideas that I can give back to the world. And so the trend stacking really aligns with the broadcast, the live broadcast like I'm doing now, but really on a 3D forefront when we have these new hardware capabilities, and then being able to bring these shopping experiences in and then somehow facilitate something to get it to you really fast and efficiently, I should say. So what is our media technology focus? Well, it's kind of what I'm talking about, right? So like I'm really diving into this immersive broadcast theme. I'm a big film junkie, and later today when I roll out this article about the magic of cinema, you're going to see where my heart is and where my head's at in terms of this space and where I see it going. And that article is really meant to embrace the industry, my perspective of like how I was raised on it and how I think what comes next in it. And what's interesting about that conversation is that the movie industry and the tech industry are one and the same. And the media industry, they all play together, right? And whether you're a diehard, like analog film person, right, with special effects, actually using explosives and like things for special effects and fire versus all the digital counterparts, we've really taken film and put it on this very high level cloud infrastructure and made that the center of everything technology and media. And the further we get into this 3D environments, the further that stuff's going to be pulled into this direction, and the further shopping and the further everything's being pulled in these directions. And you don't have to use the buzzwords like metaverse or Web3s to understand this is where we're going, because the cliches of what people don't like about those are what are hurting the process of the technology evolution, what it's giving us. And so I focus more on the value in furthering the next steps of engaging and interacting with stuff. So what I'm getting at is Prime took a big cut out of like Netflix and a lot of other companies in terms of their straight up foot in the industry and how they're able to really leverage the empire they have, right? Amazon, all that stuff. So I very much understand why that can frustrate other networks that are trying to do that. And I think the key thing here is what I'm trying to do, and I'm being very transparent about this, is I am going to be working intimately with AWS to roll out this stuff in the next couple of months in terms of using their their system from a very high level of authentication, the product API I'm creating, along with all this broadcast stuff to try to integrate that into what they're doing from some kind of third-party plugin or maybe something more. I don't know, or maybe some kind of whatever I can get my hands on. But I also want to establish if I can, some kind of understanding that I think it's fair to roll out these new technologies to all the competitive ones as well. I think that's a fair thing to do. Or maybe there's some kind of exclusive kind of like jumpstart somebody can get. But the point is that I think that something like Prime can benefit from this immersive broadcast, Netflix, Disney Plus, and all the other broadcast companies, right, which we all know, which you guys know who I'm talking about, can utilize something more. And so the immersive broadcast is really just taking the aspects of what comes next and being able to plug it into all these existing franchises and stuff like that. So, and then environmental concepts that I'm talking about here, and again, a lot of this stuff is just me thinking out loud very fast, late night typing this up. I have to come back and kind of align this so it's more sensible. But environmental concepts is basically saying, well, every franchise, every brand, every entity out there has some kind of environment it's established, some kind of look and feel that it wants to bring. So we're going to take that look and feel, bring it into these environments, and then showcase the heroes, the protagonists, or the individuals that want to play a part in that, right? That are really much the ones that are going to be on the forefront of that brand, and the protagonists are the ones that they put in front of the immersive broadcast cameras. And then we're patching in what's already there, the VR and the AR, receiving end, the viewable end, to all the customers, all the clients. And the protagonists, instead of getting in front of a camera or selling something, will get in front of their broadcast rig and do the same thing, or the influencer, or the movie star, or the business owner, or whoever you want it to be. And they're going to be able to tell their story to the world, but put themselves in an environment. The value in this, and I'll say the biggest value I see in this, is the interactive ability of all the people coming along with the protagonist in this 3D space. So if you have a favorite movie where you're watching, think of like an epic film like Lord of the Rings, right? Where they're on like the road to find the Ring of Power. If you could walk along in that journey in some kind of interactive experience, some kind of game / cinema experience, and walk by a side with that person in some kind of phase, that's a very powerful, impactful thing. And imagine the choose your own adventure storybooks we grew up on. At least when I would go to the library, that was I always went to those books first. They were so much fun. It was always like, go to page something to see this, go back to this page. And I would always choose both options, by the way. I would go see the first option, be like, oh, I take that option back. I'm going to go for the second one. And I'd pick the option that I knew would get me the better outcome. And so my point is, like, that same premise or same outcome you can create within these immersive broadcast experiences where you're still storytelling, but you're giving the story multiple paths that it can go down. And so essentially in the film industry, it's alternate endings, right? So we're taking those alternate endings that you film, and we're saying, all right, well, here's door A, B, and C. Let the interactive person choose what ending they want. And so not only are you creating more value in terms of the film and the storyline of what it can be, but you're also creating huge potential in what you sell them along the way with our iPass system, which I'll get into. So modern sensor capabilities really allow for us to do this. They allow for us to capture our subjective and really engage them on a serious level. I will say we know the limitations in the technology, and I would still bet you're better off creating a 3D version and animating it and rigging it to be more realistic than capturing something and broadcast in real time. And that may be another option. There may be ways just to put in some kind of animated character and then have them walk around. I think what I like about the immersive broadcast live aspect is that you want to be able to interact with people while you're in this stuff and be able to like see some kind of chat, request, and in real time do kind of a low live response to it. How exciting do you know that would really excite, I think, a lot of the users, a lot of the people benefiting from this. So the interactive media is really meant to push the bounds of the storytelling into the hands of the user to create their own destiny, create their own story. Similar to my whole brand concept of the space, this little promo sequence I did is talking about me hearing what the world is emoting and receiving it, and then talking about how I'm trying to further those aspects of what that means, if that makes any sense. But segueing or rolling into more the automation of all of this. I need to add some more stuff here because not everything in here is concrete and set in stone. But our onboarding process is the first stage to getting them into an environment and then getting them into the immersive shopping stuff. So the immersive automation is just this whole experience as a whole. I need to add in the onboarding thing here. I think it might be somewhere different in the list, but the purpose is the onboarding filtering strategy, the questionnaires we ask, get people to the destination of their origin, whether they want to go to some kind of sci-fi epic getaway or some kind of, or maybe some city streets in like Paris or somewhere far away where it's very, very exotic and straight to the experience they want to encompass. And the process makes that easy to facilitate all these options because there are going to be endless options, just like the stars in the sky. There are going to be endless amount of options of people to go after as they create and grow. And so the process itself is allowing for these handoffs to be efficient and dedicated to the resources they end up at, and not losing money or time or processing across the way, right? So that's what I'm trying to redo right now. My immersive automation process is very elementary, it's very rough. It does a lot of handoffs between a lot of different things, and it slows, it's sluggish, and so I'm revamping that from a very high-level cloud infrastructure in AWS, in Google Cloud, along with some other using Oracle for the enterprise resource planning, right? And not to talk about stuff that didn't work out in the world, but one of the biggest things that happened with like FTX was there was a complaint about them using QuickBooks for a lot of their accounting, and the solution, people said, well, you use something like Oracle instead, like something that is meant for a little high level exchange of resources like that. So when I hear about kind of what should I use and what kind of tools should I use for somebody that's not an enterprise person as an entrepreneur yet, I look at the very high level resources and how I can utilize them and maximize their potential. Because ultimately those people have been around the longest and they have the most experience in what worked and what didn't, and they have the numbers to prove it. So these kind of immersive automation processes are going to very much align and lay on the mercy of what these people can share and give to you that will not only benefit their companies but also benefit these newer these aspects of these ideas. So the immersive product anchoring system is the core component in my experience over media portion of this, and I talked about it last time, but I pivoted the ZOM to be more around the iPaaS system, and the immersive automation process to be around this whole DFX onboarding thing, because I believe the DFX, future of filming, is a part of this immersive automation process. And before I was just thinking it was part of the iPaaS. And so I stepped back a little bit, but the iPaaS system is a huge, huge, huge beneficiary in terms of the money-making capabilities of bringing in this data, this product data into these 3D spaces that you create while you're on a storyline where somebody can stop and sell you something in this cinematic kind of adventure. And I'll tell you why I got this idea. I was in China and I was on a tour to the Great Wall. And if you go to the Great Wall from Beijing, I think it's like a 3-4 hour drive or some crazy distance to the wall each way. Maybe it's a couple hours. Maybe it was 4 round trip. But when you get there, of course, there's a lot of people trying to sell you stuff, and you have to go down this road of where you buy a few things. But what was even more interesting was on the way back home, instead of bringing us back to the tour destination, they dropped us off at a silk market or a silk store of everything made out of silk. and you had to kind of walk through the store to get out the other side, similar to when you go in the airport and you go through the tax place there where they want you to buy all the liquor and the perfume for no taxes before you leave. Same concept. And so my future film concept on my iPass is the same exact strategy. You onboard people through this experience, through the cinema they're engaged in, and then instead of like commercials in a movie that we take time to sell you something in a commercial, during the movie I want to sell you a product. And we see this a lot in product placement where like there'll be like a Coca-Cola on the table and somebody wants, they're messaging kind of that through your head. But I actually want to make stuff interactable and purchasable in the process. So in the experience, there can be items that you're engaging, and then you can go up to it and click it, and the iPass system facilitates it in real time. I think that's huge. I think there's tons of potential. I think that's the future of how you market and distribute products in this space, and that's 100% where I'm going with the iPass stuff. I'm not just making it a storefront. I'm making the storyline capabilities in the cinema, the choose your adventure stuff play a part in that. It's a lot more fun, and it really allows you to focus on the feel of what you're giving somebody versus just accumulating the resources and the money. Somebody will figure out how to maximize that and how to do that a million times. And I don't want that to be me. I just want to create the experience. So the way we leverage this on a very high level is we're creating an immersive product API. And the product API is not just us finding a product and deploying it into this environment and creating some transaction. We have this huge database that comes from the biggest e-com giants' resources, and it will create this massive opportunity for all these products being brought into these environments. This is where I think there's a lot of job creation, and there's a lot of opportunity for individuals to play part in the 3D space with what I'm talking about. We will need to acquire 3D versions of all the products. So unfortunately, a lot of manufacturers don't give away their CAD stuff, which is what you need because that's how they create these products. So you have to either establish relationships with them, or you have to get your hands on something to replicate it, or you have to do something to get that 3D version of the product that's actually manufactured and reverse it. So we're not reversing the process, we're just taking the prior prerequisites of the actual manufactured product, whether it's been 3D printed or machined, and getting access to those files. And then once we have access to those files, we can facilitate and mimic how they get portrayed, whether it's an anchor system, whether it just shows up. All the product API is doing is taking the database information, like the product, the amount, all the description, all the necessities you'd have on a web page, and bring it into this space for you to interact with. And then the purchasing just works within the engine, and then it makes a transaction, and then it's on your way. So the product API is the powerful back-end facilitation of this at scale, and that's something I'm going to really, really push with my friends and my peers and the individuals I'm talking to in these companies to help me to help me make that happen without restricting me from any of the resources, because it will be beneficial to them, and it'll also be beneficial to what comes next in the world. And again, creating something bigger than yourself and the opportunities that are available is where I see this going. So the autonomous hardware. Now, in the last couple of months, I started talking about my Proto initiative, or my Proto Limited company. Proto is just my way of being able to build stuff with my hands. I talked about a couple weeks ago, I'm going to build a rover. I still plan on building it. I'm just going to take some aluminum, create an aluminum frame, do maybe some welding, but I'll probably just use screws because can't really weld in my place here. But create a frame, maybe some suspension, and get some servos in there, and then connect it to all my automation controllers and the stuff I've had that I use similar for the drones. And so the automated hardware efficiency of how we use the hardware, the energy consumption within these things, to where we don't have to have all these different solutions catered to very narrow markets. We can create interchangeable solutions and and put more money or put more time and maintenance into the things that we can maximize, like these flight systems, and then add this secondary deployment strategy and hardware that will kind of take it the extra mile, so to speak. And so that's the fun part in the proto stuff for me, is that I get to really just have fun with hands on. You know, like it's like building anything like satellites or autonomous things that do stuff that go far. The end goal would obviously to be able to manufacture some stuff with like NASA someday, right, and put it in spaceships and then send it off to all these places like I'm showing in my brand stuff. But the brand stuff is really meant to be metaphorically something bigger than what will actually happen right now, right? There's metaphors, there's hidden meanings behind everything I create, and the realistic nature of what we can do and what would be cool are two and the same. It's just how you think about things. And so that's what I'm getting at in terms of what you can do with the distribution, where it can go, but having that big picture mentality of where you want it to go or where you can see it going if you can work with very, very driven and resourceful people down the road. And so the automated hardware is really focused on our global mapping integration. As you guys know, I'm a big, huge Google fan. Google is one of the greatest companies to be there for me in terms of thick and thin, a lot of the resources, sharing their love, having these open events where they invite you and then they just give you resources and they say, go with it. And so I do not want to lose Google's place in a lot of this in terms of what they've done for me and how much they've helped me develop as an entrepreneur and just a creative person and all the tech and all the media stuff. By me leveraging the AWS stuff for this, I feel bad about stepping away from the Google Cloud resources, but I'm not stepping away. I'm just leveraging what Google can offer on a very high level. And so the mapping to me is the first place to really look. And our mapping API integration is something that they actually have that we're going to build into this that's going to allow us to deploy stuff on a global scale. There's all the computing and calculating between the routing, the APIs, pulling information, and all the things you'd expect it to do with any other mapping system. And it's going to hopefully play nice with all these other stuff. They're both Google Cloud and AWS and all the other cloud systems. They're all competitors, so you have to really question how much you can do together without there being extra stuff you have to create. However, I think if you can find a balance between everything there's something there. And so those are kind of the initiatives of these three companies I'm building. So what am I doing to actually bring it to the world? Well, the next phases of this are the software development. And I recently saw something about Elon talking about when he started his companies. He knew that if he built software and things for people to engage with, he would be able to make money off of that to do other things. And so I did this before hearing that, but like in terms, I've decided to do this stuff before hearing that, but my mind's been in a very similar place in terms of when I created Oasis Live, the goal was to try to create a game where I can make money on ad revenue so I can do stuff that's more high level that costs a lot more money. And so everything I've been creating is kind of geared towards finding ways to make money, the cumulative growth through, passive income, you can call it, or just like all the stuff, tricks of the trade everybody else is doing. And so the application launcher I rolled out with, and if you're not aware of that, in the newsletter I'm creating here, that you might get if you follow me and you're interested, we'll link you to that. But it's just basically, if you go to our homepage on DigiEffects, it's the launcher there, and you can download it. But the application launcher is really meant to start authenticating all these systems at a very high level through the cloud resource to where we can start pulling in the iPaaS, the future film aspects of what I'm talking about, without a high-level launcher to be able to control and facilitate and mitigate the risk of mobile and desktop and all the wearables. The cross-platform enableability that you need is not there. And so as much as I get told, oh, you're procrastinating, or I don't see it as procrastination. I see it as me stepping back and trying to control and leverage what I'm creating so that I have keep control of it, right? And not give away control. But I do openly share this stuff because I am not trying to piss anybody off, right? With creating stuff that could be competitive. I'm trying to add value, like I said. So whatever people choose to do in the receiving end, and whatever values they hold in themselves or whatever, that's their problem or their business. I'm just here to do what I think is right. So the application launcher itself is really going to allow us to authenticate a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. And the first steps I want to take are basically creating a customizable profile and a flexible user interface to where we can focus on the key core components that makes it unique to the user. And when you sign in, customizing your brand identity, your space, your character, your broadcast avatar, along with the data consumption and transparency settings. When we start authenticating people, we start measuring what they're doing, a big concern is going to be, data consumption is a huge concern. So I'm going to, on the forefront, make the data consumption known and give the users the flexibility to really maximize that to their means. You have to collect data. You want to collect data. Anybody that doesn't think data collection isn't valuable is kind of ignorant about how to improve upon their experience. I don't understand people that have nothing to hide, worried about what is known out of them. I say that with a grain of salt because obviously there are things that have happened to me and other people of people knowing a bunch of stuff, right? Where you just go out and people just say things and you can't even defend yourself. It just kind of happens. You just kind of sit there and like, what the heck? Nobody asked me. But the point is that data consumption itself is good if you know how to leverage it to your advantage and help the user. And there's still money to be made available there. I think the key core, the very important thing is the transparency you give the people on the receiving end so that they adopt it and they're not scared of it. And the adoption is a super important aspect of the success in this, in my mind. I don't think you grow a user base without their trust. And I think to have trust, it's something you have to prove. It's not something you can just tell people. You have to really prove that the trust that you want people to have in you is there, and you show it through your actions and through. And again, I'm very much friendly with all the social platforms, at least I want to be. And I'm very much supportive and respectable to them. So when I talk about Twitter, I'm not attacking Instagram or Facebook, or when I'm talking about Elon, I'm not attacking Mark and vice versa. I whatever relationships they have with each other is between them. My goal is to add value to each one of their own endeavors. And I say this so that it's very clear that this is where my head's at. And so what I like about what Elon's doing with a lot of what he's calling out, what was going on with Twitter, I think that's very noble of him. And I think one thing I really like about Elon's attitude is that Elon is taking hits to try to create a better foundation of trust in the world, right? And so that trust is everything. That's a huge, huge, huge thing. And we all have to work on that. Every single one of us. And when you can trust somebody, you can offer them things they don't know about, and they'll maybe listen to you when they're not sure what the outcome is. And so that's a big part of my application launcher and consumption data stuff that I'm working on. And the immersive agency platform, my application loader, and everything I'm talking about here. Because to me, a platform is a web version of like the launcher, but the platform basically encompasses all this stuff. So maybe the launcher is actually the platform and vice versa. I'm still trying to figure that out. But what I do know is that it's going to offer custom onboarding processes, as in you go into these launched environments. Now the launcher right now separates everything into these different chunks because I'm building up the different chunks. But eventually the onboarding process is going to be like this uniform kind of flow of information that flows into whatever it needs to go to. Maybe it can go directly to a storefront. Maybe it can go directly to a future of film environment. Maybe it goes to some third thing I haven't thought about yet, or some kind of AI, you know, interactive assistant brand customization page or something, or you know, room. But the purpose of the platform is to create this onboarding process. So I think of it as a traditional agency, an agency for whether you're a celebrity, a star trying to get work in the movie industry, or you're just somebody trying to sell your brand through ads. An agency knows how to cater and market to the demographic you're selling to. They have an understanding of psychology and the trends and all the stuff we're talking about. I have a lot of agency experience through my own interest, through my media consumption and technology knowledge. I don't have very high level experience in like these New York and London and LA based agencies, because they would never hire me, to be honest. They would give me contracts, but I could never get in full time with them because I just wasn't good enough at the time when I was trying. So, but what I did was I consumed and I took a lot from them I thought was valuable, along with my friends and peers in the industry, and I created my own version of a lot of that stuff. So my experience campaign stuff, which I'm going to be pushing in the next couple of weeks to make some extra cash to continue paying for this, isn't really a lot of the agency experience I have in my life, but the next level stuff with that is bringing this 3D stuff is my point. And we do that through these dynamic cinema experiences like I talked about, where you onboard people into the areas based off what their interests are, and then you throw them in some kind of environment theme thing, and that's when you can, you know, upsell them on the iPass system and deploy it through the proto modular deployment systems, all that stuff, or whatever third party wants to use it. But the whole goal is to basically funnel them there through this thing, but it's all done in 3D and these environments. And that's pretty much the gist of the agency platform is meant to create that flow. And again, this checklist isn't complete. It's just allow for me to have like some talking points, then I can add some more stuff, and then eventually go back and showcase everything and bring it together. The future of film experience is, I somewhat talked about this and maybe some redundant, but I'm just relaying on some information. The interactive gameplay, the interactive choose your own adventure storyline, availability, what that entails, to me is everything. I think it will allow for, you know, a lot of these Marvel movies and a lot of these space movies to take these cool environments and then create some kind of like fan base interaction through the VR and AR stuff. So that's where I see it happening. Sequential storytelling, I don't know if that's the right terminology. Sequential means in a sequence, right? And so a storyline isn't in sequence, but I think what I mean is every part of the story you're able to sell them or engage in some way. So in film, or when you have scenes, you have sequences that you cut. Every single scene, there's some kind of interaction you can create, and then those are all different sales points or snippets of sale transactions you can make along the way. The future of film experience is masking some of that with the storytelling and the wow factor of the big picture, the big screen, while you're, you know, offering things within there. And so that comes back again to the product anchoring system, which allows you to geolocate anchors and procedurally generate these rooms and environments where people can engage. So what I traditionally was doing is I was trying to mimic actual storefronts with shelves and like a traditional store. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, storytelling and the road to adventure doesn't have like a shelf with something you need. It's kind of placed in the right place. It's kind of there at the right time, and it becomes this wow factor that kind of helps the story process, the process of the storytelling. And so I think the cool thing about geolocation anchoring with the iPad stuff is to say you have some kind of like story that's like a real life adventure or geolocation adventure, and you could put people on this cinematic film adventure in real life somewhere. Then maybe they rewalk this path and be a part of this like augmented broadcast thing. Having like an anchor point along the road somewhere would be really cool. I see the access in that, or the value in that. Procedural generation just means we have these preset anchor layouts that generate content based off of what we filter. So if you are in a outdoor store, it filters outdoor stuff, or maybe you're in a climbing store, it'll filter on the climbing stuff. Maybe you're in a beauty salon or Sephora, it'll showcase all the beauty products, all the beauty brands, all the perfumes, and it's able to switch up on the fly, preset, configure as anchor points and sections to fit within one wall and other stuff like that. The computer vision, a lot of the LiDAR capabilities that allow for us to do that, we'll have to have pre-programmed or prefabricated layouts that we can access. And like it can say, well, this portion, what I just scanned here is 5 by 10 feet. So A, B, and C is going to fit here, but not D and E, right? And so it has to know what will fit and what won't. But once you know what will fit there, then the amount of options of what you place there are endless. It just comes down to fitting within the bounds or the area you set for that was a lot of that computer vision. The algorithmic dispersion, again, I don't know if that makes sense. It sounded cool, but I don't know if it makes sense. So it's essentially just that, right? It's able to detect based off of the scope and scale of an environment what to disperse in that location that is feasible to the time and place of that storytelling ability. And so that's just straightforward, just using an algorithm to determine what you need to see in that time. Very similar to a lot of the social stuff we deal with. AI. All right, so the AI aspects of this, the machine learning. This is very interesting because I actually had an experience the other day where I feel like some of the big tech serves me stuff that they see, but they don't really know how I feel. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that you can see a lot of what I post. You can see what I buy. You can see where I go. You can see how I spend my time, and you can collect all that information and data. However, do you really know what I'm feeling inside to make those choices? I'm not 100% sure we figured out how, or maybe there's some limitations to some things I'm not seeing here. But I feel like there's a disconnect between what I'm doing and what I'm feeling about it. And so I think the reason that I see that happening, and again, I'm not an AI expert, and I actually, this is probably the field that I will outsource the most, and I recently partnered with some startups where we're going to have follow-up conversations in the next couple of months about integrating their resources into this stuff. But I think the value in feeling something, being able to measure something, and then feeling the emotional aspects of it. This goes back to the very early on when I was pitching the cognitive bias and the emotional kind of reconciliation. You start seeing that happening now, but there has to be not just a reactive nature to seeing how somebody's feeling, like whether they're sad or happy because they look like it, but it's a machine knowing that's the outcome of what's going to happen from these processes. I don't see a lot of the AI that I'm served and a lot of the stuff that comes to my way in terms of responses, reactions to my life, doing that. I see reactions to my life replicating what they think I want to see. But the emotions that I'm going through, I don't see them recognizing the outcome of that. So I think that's where we are in the AI world. I think we are, I call it emotional intelligence. And there's a lot of danger in that, as you can imagine, if you talk to anybody about giving a machine emotional intelligence, especially if they can weaponize those machines. But I don't see any restrictive, hurtful things that can happen from emotional intelligence in a lot of the stuff that can benefit your experience, and that's my focus. So my point is, like, our awaretechnology.com site. Aware Technology is going to be a derivative or a part of this that is going to play a part in that. The immersive assistant's ability to understand why you choose something and be able to respond to you more than just a response from data consumption. And I think that'd be very helpful in the marketplace. So that's kind of like both those AI things. The immersive assistance is basically going to do everything that any else assistant can do, tell you what you should see next, but it's going to do a little bit more. It's going to be kind of a part of the experience and be able to engage you on a more higher level. Okay, so getting into hardware engineering. So I talked a little bit about the software stuff I'm going to do. And so the hardware is interchangeable conveyances. Again, I don't know if that's something that makes sense, but it's basically the going back to the modular deployment systems, creating these systems that allow us to deploy stuff in real time, no matter where you are, what you're doing, and maximize the efficiency across the board. And these are really going to be customized for extended range. The biggest problem we have with batteries are consumption, right? Battery efficiency is very, very hard to maximize compared to gas or fuels that allow for us to create combustion and create energy through just the momentum of like a two-stroke or four-stroke or whatever you're using, a rotary engine. There's all kinds of different kinds of stuff. Fuel is a lot more efficient, but it's because I don't explain why it's more efficient other than I think the exchange of energy you need from the thing you're taking to the thing you're giving is less, right? Yeah, it takes a lot less to create a combustion, some kind of energy through combustion than it does through the resistance in a battery to create that energy, right? And so when we see like these new and improved batteries, like the 4870, I think is the Tesla's new one, or I forget the number, but basically the way you measure it is by the circumference or the dimensions of the battery. That's how they model it. But if you unravel, right, if you look into like how these batteries created, they're basically just maximizing the potential of how much of the resistance and how much like what's happening with the drain of power, how it diffuses, or I don't know what I'm getting at. But the point is like it's more efficient, more efficiently packed, and it can hold a lot more. And we're constantly trying to figure out ways to do that. And also, in that specific design of that battery, they figured out a way to connect the positive and negative ports to the whole strip, right? In the past, you had to connect the very end, and then the energy had to travel across the strip. Versus now, we can go directly from modular points in it. So it just makes the energy, the draw of energy you need more efficient, and you can draw more energy. Essentially, is what I'm getting at. And back to what I was talking about, like fuel versus electric. Fuel has a natural combustive nature where you can just light it on fire and it creates a huge kind of reaction, and then we can use engineering and machine mechanics to create that same momentum we need. And so the challenge with all battery consumption is it's still limited. And when you talk about flight systems that use battery consumption, you need some kind of renewable resource, and solar efficiency is not as good as it could be in terms of it's very hard to absorb the amount of energy you're wasting in solar. You have to have a lot of saved up because the transfer in power that you drain is a lot faster than the consumption in which you bring it in. So you have to have a very, very, very big amount of solar, but more importantly, you have to have a lot of reserved energy in a battery pack. So it's kind of less about, I think, the solar panels and more about the reserved energy that you use. And so the extended range in these is me figuring out ways to renew the energy through solar, through some kind of mechanism that can generate power back. In your car, what charges your battery while you go, the alternator and all this other stuff will create kind of like and sadly, I went to go try to move my car out the other day and my battery's dead, so I gotta get it jumped, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, even that stuff can fail. So you gotta find ways to extend the range. And the zero emissions in mind is me just trying to align my goals as a technology media person with everybody else. I'm not trying to do anything special. My narrative is just like everybody else: less pollution, more efficiency, more practicality and ways to save money, time, and resources, so we don't have to rely on other parties in the world to help us. Nobody wants to pay $7 or $6 a gallon for gas just because we're at war. And so in order to exclude ourselves from those aspects, we have to become dependent or independent from the dependencies we have in that external use. Okay, so our immersive broadcast rigs. I'm going to change it up a little bit, but essentially this is also a hardware initiative. So I was just talking about kind of the immersive automations or the autonomous vehicle stuff and how we can maximize that. But our immersive product rigs, I think, is going to be really fun. So what I want to do in the new year, around my birthday, after I build this rover out, is I'm going to build the concept, the DFX immersive rig that I'm talking about. These different tiers. I got to get my hands on the cameras. That's the biggest thing. I got to come up with like, a couple grand to spend on the cameras I need that I want. And then the mounts themselves and all of the servos and the rovers and the touchscreens. I know how to, I actually wonder if it's right here. No, but I have like little micro chips or microcomputers with touchscreens that I can program to move servos into certain preset values. And what that allows you to do is you can attach those to hydraulic and pneumatic arms to extend, retract, or set preset, layouts of what something can be. So like if that light behind me right there had a motor on it with little presets, you can just press the button A and it knows to go to preset A, B, and C. It's very similar to my desk right here. My desk is one of those desks that goes up and goes down, right? And so there's presets on there, and the motors are talking to a little board here with the buttons. It just knows to go to what you set. I'm going to do the same kind of concept, but with like these immersive broadcast rigs. And the reason being is that the broadcast rigs to me are going to be very geared toward influencer rigs. You have GoPro rigs, you have phone rigs, and you have mirrorless camera rigs, and you have DSLR rigs, you have film rigs, you have all these rigs. In the industry, you have rigs, and a rig is basically a camera with all the accessories that make it possible, the extras, right? The lighting, the mics, the lapels, all the things that. So this immersive broadcast rig is going to be a prototyped conceptual build of a very high level tier, what I'm talking about. It's going to show the preset values so I can unfold into a broadcast ready mode, and then I'm going to be able to tap it into my DFX future of film demo environment that I'm rolling out in the authentication launcher. So first steps in all of this is I'm authenticating the launcher in the upcoming soon. Once I have the authentication in place, I can authenticate myself into my demo scene, similar to what was on the web. And so once I have that, then I can patch in the hardware I've created to capture that and showcase it works. It's easy to capture the video. It's easy to transcode the video into a digital format. It's harder to tell the video how to deploy itself into a game engine or into an environment you're creating. I do have some people that are partnered with in this space that I have to follow up with in the upcoming weeks as well. And I don't know how much they're going to help me and how much they're going to ask me to pay to license their stuff. And that's the biggest challenge in this, what I face is leveraging what people want to help with and what they want to make money off of and how we can work together to be beneficial. So, and our immersive broadcast rigs, like I said, they're for the star and everybody. It's meant to make everybody feel like their own star, make everybody feel like they're unique and special, and they can showcase themselves to the best of their ability, and they're custom catered to every single individual, whether you're an influencer, a celebrity that wants to use this, or just an individual like myself that just wants to put themselves out there for fun. It's meant for you, and you're going to be able to create your own rigs and customize them as you want, and it's going to be a branded DFX kind of thing, very similar to like the GoPro model. It's coming out. And then I don't really know why secure cloud systems are under hardware. I think that's wrong. But it talked about this kind of goes when I talked about the data transparency and the user control. It is making sure that whatever we accumulate to better serve you, it's in your hands, and we create an interface. That should be under software, or I guess this is more about the user interface of how you're able to toggle on stuff that you want and don't want. So that's pretty much what that means. Working prototypes. Okay, so our application launcher is, again, I'm kind of redundant here, but I'm coming back in a different angle. In our application launcher, the next steps is cross-platform updates and social feed integration. So once we have the authentication in place, I have a social feed that I created in Psalm last year, and it uses Firebase, and it does all the stuff that Instagram does. I'm gonna probably build it into the launcher as a kind of share, a very entry-level way of sharing the experiences, to where people can showcase what they're doing on like a social feed. That's all I'm going to use it for, nothing more. That's going to be the start for that. Cross-platform updates are going to allow for you to be able to start something on the mobile version and then be able to pick it up in your broadcast studio at home. And example, like I'm always going to reference this if I use every day, but like I use Google Drive a lot and Google Docs. So I'll start like a doc, a brief overview or description on like the train or when I'm walking or anywhere. I'm just always working all the time doing something, and then when I get home I'll dive back into it. And so that cross authentication just allows for us to sync it all. Very basic. It's kind of expected. If you don't do that nowadays, I don't think you're going to be able to grow some kind of thing you're working on. Okay, so experience over media. And again, we transitioned experience over media from the immersive automation process into this iPaaS system. Keep that in mind. Experience over media is now the iPaaS portion of the immersive automation process. The digital storefront is the white labeled proof of concept, the pilot, the minimum viable product of this working. Just getting a bunch of stuff in there and being able to buy it, and then it gets to you. That's done. I already done that. I just haven't showcased it. And then the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try to roll that out into an app. Brand environments, taking that same concept on a very basic level and then creating branded and customized layouts for everybody. I want to create like some kind of builder for that, like a 3D builder. But for now, I think there's going to be preset environments that can be customized by the textures and not the layouts. One of the greatest things that I think would be awesome is a randomizer, a tumbler. And so in my world, there's two things I think about. I think about the TikTok random, just basically when the FYP page, what do they call it? And Instagram they all have it. Like Twitter, they all have it. But a tumbler that basically tumbles through a storefront they think, or an environment they think you're going to be interested in, just randomly. And there was this one app, and I miss it. And if you are the creator of this, you should bring it back. Urban Spoon. Who's actually heard of that app? Urban Spoon was a lot of fun. So I don't know what happened to it, but basically it was a way to find the perfect restaurant based off of your interest. So there'd be 3 sections. One was a cuisine type. One was a city. And then I forget what the third option was. It was like time of day or I think it was something. But then you could basically put these you could toggle these 3 things, and you press the spoon button, and it would generate random results for you. And so that's the other thing I'm thinking of in this. Like the store tumbler can have just results based off of your preset interests and just tumble through these things. And that's a little bit, to me, the Tumblr version of this is a TikTok flow, or an Instagram flow of what comes next and what you should see, but in like the 3D version of it. And then the onboarding process is the 3D version of it. The Tumblr is the 2-dimensional UI version of it that will be like when you pick your own kind of like what comes next, or where you dive into something from the phone. And so that's what that means. And of course, in our immersive agency platform, we have rich media storytelling and motion engagement series. Rich media storytelling, not just creating an ad series that's selling a product, but bringing you along the ride in a series of ads that tells a story. Storyboarding or creating a storyboard of ads that helps sell your brand. That's what I mean by that. I've been trying to do that with all the ads and the videos I'm creating, but I'm just one guy, so it's hard. And the motion engagement series is the same kind of concept, but creating series of things that build different chapters into a storyline of building the brand and the journey along the way. That's the narrative I see happening. That's what I'm trying to do. And ultimately, that is where I'm going with a lot of this stuff. So that's the emergency agency platform, some of the strategy behind how that works and how that's playing a part in it. So the wedges. how are we gonna wedge this stuff in the market, and how are you guys gonna, how am I gonna, some companies gonna keep on throwing me on the bus and and doing me dirty, and some companies are gonna help me, right? I mean, it is what it is. It's just it goes both ways. Um, the proof of concept in our alpha phase is, and this is really geared towards. So when I talk about this, I can think about this two ways. I can think about this like my iPaaS system, or I can think about this as the overall platform I'm creating, and take it for however it resonates. I think for me, I have two mentalities of grounding my perspective and attitude about this. First one is being direct concept to the iPaaS itself, so that somebody doesn't know what I'm talking about can just understand it. And the other one is a proof of concept for the bigger picture of all of this. And so that I'm really working on the bigger picture thing, and then trying to get all the help along the way to do so. But who knows what comes next. So within that, though, the proof of concept, we have the immersive product anchors. That's done. That's working. I'm able to pull stuff in from the cloud resource, and you're able to create a transactional payment through our iPaaS system right now. I stopped it there because, again, I'm coming back to the authentication on a very higher level within my application launcher to further the next steps in the mapping and stuff like that. So that's the secure payment gateway and immersive product anchors. That's just the proof of concept I've laid out. A viable product, right? The minimum viable product is left out the minimum, is being able to create street interactions with our location anchors in the mapping, and then pulling a 3D catalog of endless amount of stuff that's scalable through our product API. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm juggling this stuff out. And then where I want to get to is the application release is the immersive automation, all the steps kind of flowing together with all the partnerships and the real-time delivery in place, whether it's somewhere out far away where there's no cars around and people, or it's just a city center. I don't know what comes next. But the key is that it's the immersive automation process playing out in some kind of industry standard. This enterprise SaaS infrastructure I'm working towards, and that entails real-time delivery, immersive automation, everything I talked about just flowing naturally. That is the alpha aspects of this, of like an alpha release, realistically where I'm at. Even though I call this beta program that I'm working on, the naming convention of beta and alphas, I think for a company that makes billions of dollars, they know the difference. For me, a beta and alpha is like, a beta is still, an alpha is kind of, it's just like a group of your friends you're messing around. A beta is a group of peers you're messing with to build something out that you open up a little bit, but they're all kind of the same thing. It just depends on how you want to look at it, in my mind. But the beta to me is when you start getting the world involved, right? That's where, and so international cities, I rolled out this beta subscription section on the Zom.app site that allows you to sign up for your city. There's 9 cities released there, you can do it, and there's other cities I've listed to let you know where I'm going with this. That is when we start rolling into the beta cities, is getting you to sign up for your city so that we can start rolling out this stuff and you can help test it. And creating this global market outreach, understanding that every market in every city has a different way of doing things, and we are capable of delivering the strategies that they need in their place with the marketing they're used to using, and stuff like that. Cross authentication, be able to sign in the mobile and deployment development strategies on the desktop, self-explanatory. Just making sure we can create this infrastructure that everybody can use across the board. And then application protocol, creating some kind of protocol standard for transparency initiatives, security, making sure that whether we're using crypto, it's not being able, you can't get hacked, along with just protocols across the board, right? In terms of like when we think about the web, the www part, the HTML or HTML, all of those are protocols and set standards in place that we've established as a collective in the world. I'm trying to figure out ways to create a new protocol, understanding that what I'm talking about is bigger than myself, my company, or even like a country, right? This is like when the world decides, hey, this is what we got to do for the next steps to make something like this happen. I, if I can just stop for a second and talk about why, we have companies that want to create a metaverse first. Like Mark has been trying very hard to create this foundation around this experience so everybody can utilize it. And there's other companies doing the same thing, right? And I think the problem that everybody's facing is that nobody wants to buy into one person running it. It doesn't matter if it's the guy that created Facebook or the guy that created something else. Nobody wants to have to answer to one person. And I think there's some important lessons in that statement, because who answers to the protocol of the internet? Who answers the protocol of the web? Somebody established it, whether it was a government entity or whether it was a bunch of scientists in Silicon Valley in a lab. It was established and we all agreed to it. And even when you have people hacking from other countries, there's still some kind of understanding of the protocols, right? And so I don't necessarily know the answer to that, other than I know that that has to be the way we create forward momentum in this space, is we have to establish some kind of universal understanding of what it's going to take and what people have to do. Even like, people in Russia and China and other places that don't want to play with American law and rules in place, and don't want to be nice to us, or I should say China doesn't want to be nice, or even Russians. I'm just saying the governments in place and the leaderships in these places that are constricting the overall universal perspective of growing and innovation in the world. That's the challenge, right? Is that not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody's willing to give up their control and power, which you have to give up some power and control to further stuff sometimes. And that's just the way the world we live in, is that most people don't care past their lifetime. They only care about their life. They don't care about who comes after them. They care about what's important to them right now. And so I want to change that mentality. I want to create something where when I die someday, I can leave it behind for somebody else to build off of. So in strategic partnerships, I originally had a list of 1,000 gazillion things in here. And I was like, well, you can go to the link in the partnerships. I'm still establishing what's a partnership, what's somebody I'm utilizing, and all this stuff, right? And so this section's very, very much undone and untouched, but I broke it down into 3 sections here. Enterprise relationships. I call enterprise relationships not really partnerships, because they don't need me, I need them. But they're very much going to be the foundation of how I roll this stuff out. And that's all the big tech companies I want to play a part with this. The relationships I want to establish are obviously with Amazon, Meta, Google, Apple, and Unity, and I'm not talking about like Elon stuff or any of that stuff, because I want to help Elon with what he's doing, but I don't necessarily, I don't think I'll leverage any of his stuff. I'm trying to make stuff to help him, right? That's like my attitude with his stuff. But so I don't really talk about like SpaceX or anything like that, but potentially it'd be nice to partner with something like that and build something into like a future use case when you're actually doing stuff outside of the realm of the ground level. But the enterprise level stuff, like using Oracle for like the enterprise planning, right? When you're transitioning into that phase, and those are like just a few of a bunch of the enterprise level things I'm leveraging, right? I the biggest thing for me is I want to make sure, I can leverage Apple in this, right? Apple's very important to me as well, and they don't have a cloud resource, but they have really cool hardware. And they're coming out with new hardware. And I didn't mention Microsoft. Microsoft is another player in here that they're very much in back of my mind of I really want to leverage everything in offer. They also have a cloud resources. They partner with Meta in terms of their distribution. I'm not sure I'm going to use Azure as an option, but I want to use their hardware, and I want to follow their initiative and strategies as a company in what I'm doing. So extending the olive branch to every company in whatever way I can is super important to me, because they all helped me like try to be a better version of myself. And so I owe them all that, or at least I owe the narrative of the people that found these companies and the resources they gave me growing up. I just owe them that much. And so between the cloud resources, the hardware, the software, and everything else, enterprise is going to allow for me to do that. I think the more important thing for me is the narrative between the mid-market, which are still people ahead of me that want to be these big enterprise levels, that have a lot of figured out what I haven't figured out, that they're going to be the big chunk of this. They're going to be the ones that are coming and help make this happen. And that list is like hundreds of companies. And so I'm not going to really get into that list, other than they're going to do all the little things from SOC compliance to AI to, or at least I see that's what's happening. I don't know why my stream is constantly cutting down on me, but it is. And then lastly, the startup resources. These are adding value to the brand. I am most excited about these companies because these are the companies that want something just as bad as I do. And I don't say that to poke and make fun of the bigger companies, but smaller companies have a lot more energy they have to put into something with no resources and very easily can hit the bucket, right? And so the startup world, there's a few startups that I've been talking to that are very excited, have talked about partnerships, and I'm very excited. I have not reached out back to them because I've been so consumed by all of this, but I'm very excited for them because if I can help generate growth in their company with mine and we can establish something more, then I've done a big part of my job, and that is create opportunity and create something I think is valuable. And so those three sections, the list, I'll continue building out these lists, but I don't necessarily have time to do that. And I'm constantly figuring out what's real, what's not, who's just selling me stuff, who actually is in it. Like, you get a lot of people just trying to sell you stuff all the time. So it is what it is. So that's essentially the strategy in terms of the partnerships and what we're developing. I don't think I left something out of here I have to add in. A section I just realized now, but the next phase in terms of onboard or internal growth. So and this will be in the newsletter I launch out, but I'll add it to this list as well after this. So I'm immediately in the next couple of weeks, I have a long list of people that are interested in, from a technical forefront and an operational forefront on what I'm doing. They think it's interesting, they express interest, and I put a few applications out last year. I got a few hundred people in each sector to be like, come on as like technology, CTO, and some people come on as COOs. I could go back through all those lists. It was about probably 500 or 600 people. And I'm going to research and do a new version of the application that's updated. And I'm going to put that out in the upcoming weeks. You're going to see that. Looking for specifically CTO and COO to help me run this stuff. A left and right hand man, somebody can help me manage everything I'm talking about. Somebody can help me with the tech stuff. And that'll allow for me to continue conceptualizing the big picture. But ultimately, it's just you can have an understanding of all of it. On top of that, I'm looking for about 20 to 30 developers, full stack developers, everybody from cloud architects to AI experts to game engine experts to mobile deployment developers. And I just picked 20 to 30 people because I know I'm going to need at least a few people for each part of that. And there's so many different aspects in terms of developing something like this. And I have to establish the budget I have for that. What is that going to cost? Because we all know that development is pricey, especially when there's a lot of unknowns, and development with data consumption is an unknown, right? You don't know what it's going to take. So that's something I'm going to work into the know your numbers portion of this. So that's the section that's going to be under here that I'm going to add after this. Strategic partnerships is going to be a like internal growth section when I talk about the management, development, and then something else, a third party. And then so lastly on the index here, before we wrap it up, it's been an hour and a half here. Is I'm talking about traditional creative portfolio assets. Why you should give me the time today. Why you should listen to me. Who the heck is this guy with all his nonsense he's talking about all the time where the world just thinks I'm crazy? I have a lot of experience in media and just growing up around technology, fiddling with hardware, movies, film, web, I spent a lot of time in this field, and I have a lot of traditional media marketing stuff that I am pulling into the next level of things I want to create. And our traditional marketing at DigiFX comes from a lot of rich media, motion graphics, video production, social outreach, and hardware integration, from like using drones for surveying, IoT, a lot of sensor relationships, or sensors that play along with stuff to create like these kind of marketing experiences. So I'm going to be utilizing and rolling out a lot of these aspects along with our creating our experience campaign marketing strategy. So the next section of Portfolio Showcase really talks about, and this I think I need to reword this as well, because we're not really showcasing stuff here. I'm talking about the next, I'm going to start rolling out new versions of our experience campaign strategy where we're going to re-offer those stuff. It's going to be something a traditional ways of me to accumulate resources so I can continue doing what I'm doing, along with diving into a lot of 3D technologies I'm talking about, the mobile application deployment, how you can utilize this and how you can engage people through marketing, and whatever else comes our way. I could build custom workstations and sell those. I used to do that. I used to build custom computers and make like $500-$600 off them. But there's not enough meat on the bone to scale it up. It's a lot easier to sell a campaign strategy or something that you have a foundation in place and then the creative gets replaced in the copyright, right? That's very easy to replicate. Also, there's not a lot of money you need to do that. In hardware, you need to pay for the hardware. And that's the hard part about selling hardware, is that you have to pay for a lot of the resources or the components that make it the hardware you want it to be. And so part of that is part of understanding our portfolio. And again, I got to fix this section because this doesn't really make sense to me now that I read it. But is our look and our feel of our brand, how we want to stand out and how we want to diversify ourselves from everybody else. And you're starting to see that in a lot of my narrative of what I'm creating in terms of this idea of the character I'm trying to create within my brand identity. This long lost, astronaut trying to build this way to communicate and facilitate this experience back home, right? And I hope it's fun for you guys like it is for me, and I hope everybody understands that there's no cruel intentions or hard feelings or in terms of, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything in terms of what I'm creating. I'm just having fun and just doing what I want to do. And I'm no longer worried about the judgment of somebody else saying, well, that's stupid, because guess what? Everything I've done to this point has been nothing but fun, and it's continuing to allow for me to enjoy doing it. And that's the secret to everything is just, keep it fun, but make sure it fits into where everybody else's head's at. But the only reason why things are not fun is when you have to make money doing them. Right? And so you got to find a balance between making money and keeping it fun. And that's the secret to life. And if you want to know what kept me sane all these years of just working, it was that. It was making sure what I was doing is fun, and it just brought joy to my heart. And so I would say that's the big part of it. The market outreach is really our way of how we're going to reach different players and people in the world through what we do by identifying equal understandings of what we're trying to accomplish, and mutual vision and ideology of what this makes sense. And this is very high level for me. It could be everything from just I'm trying to think very, very high level on this, very big picture, meaning I want to convince a company like Amazon or somebody to embrace these new technologies into part of their brands, right? Create this in a Prime experience or Netflix to do something like this or anything like that. And but there's also projects that are like these conceptualized projects that we haven't really dove into yet, like this Project Neom in the Middle East, right? And they're really much interested in a lot of stuff. But there's also this company called Axiom Space that is like they're the logistics of things in orbit and how we utilize it, how we live in space, and how we're going to do all this stuff. So my marketing is really geared towards the future use case of what this could be, knowing we're not there yet, but putting those ideas out there of how to think about small little chunks along the way. That's what I mean by marketing outreach. It's the big picture stuff, the stuff that really is exciting, that you can envision something, a fantasy that could be something real if you put your mind into it. And and then there's a couple links down in the bottom you can follow. This will give you to all the access, everything I'm talking about. And that's pretty much it. So this is the index, right? This is the company index. It was my overview of the next 9 months of what I'm going to try to do. So in a bullet point, 30-second pitch to you, we're going to we're rolling this application launcher out. We're authenticating it. We're going to plug in the future of film, the iPass system into it. And then we're going to showcase the demo for that. We're going to showcase the iPass working, and then we're going to get the hardware to work for it all in the next couple of months. That's my goals. And I'm hopefully, if I can make that happen, at that point, there'll be a way to scale it up and fit it to a bigger picture thing. So I hope you guys have a great holiday, and look for the next couple of weeks stuff that I'm rolling out. Look forward to, there's an article I'm launching in the film industry later today. I'm just going to revise it, make sure it makes sense, along with this newsletter I'm going to roll out today as well. And for some of you, you're going to get some emails from me regarding our relationship, our working together, what we can do and what we can create, not only in my work, in my company, but also it will benefit your company. And more importantly, I hope you guys have a really great holiday. And no matter what you celebrate, and family is a huge beneficiary in terms of your sanity, in terms of your work ethic. Family is very important in terms of giving you love and the support you need, in terms of furthering your goals. And it's also, family is something to work towards if you don't have it, right? And so for me, a lot of this has been me working towards sharing this with a partner, starting my own family, being able to share my life experience with whoever that person may be. And so I hope you guys all enjoy your holidays and opportunities. If you're willing to really focus on what the potential can be. And I'm not scared of failing anymore. I'm scared of not trying. And everything I'm doing now is me trying. It's everything me. I'm just trying to do things that I think are just fun to put out there. And I don't care if it